All right, hey, I'm Maitreya Spearing and I'm here with Jesse Emia from KeepSpace, and we're going to do a little bit of a case study around how KeepSpace has been claiming the R&D tax incentive now for about 6 years, I think.
6 years, bro.
6 years. So I'm just going to have a chat to Jesse, see how it's been for him, learn a bit about KeepSpace and his company and himself as a person, and yeah, we'll kick it off. Cool, man. So I just want to ask you about KeepSpace. Who is KeepSpace as a company, and what does the company mean to you?
So KeepSpace itself is a third-party logistics service to date. And what we do is we're helping e-commerce businesses have their stuff stored at our warehouse in Bayswater. There's over 39 businesses now logging their goods in here. We do integrations into their websites. Most sites usually have multiple platforms that we usually connect to. We then get copies of their orders and we distribute those orders pretty much all around the world. Last financial year, we did 1.7 mil and we're forecast for 3.2. And Maitreya has done R&Ds with us ever since we were at 100,000 in our year of turnover back in 2017.
I think it was earlier than that.
Or
I think
16?
2016, yeah.
It was a while ago. So it's been a journey of going through an understanding of this process. Our team size to date is also at 16 people. When Maitreya and I first started, it was at a size of 2, and it's been a heck of a ride. What KeepSpace means to me, it means really it's a business vehicle that we're utilizing to help create a bridge between lots of nations and people to connect with each other. And the purpose of the business is mostly to be able to bring the passions of people's love and care for certain things and being able to have them share that with others who would have a similar passion and care with others. That's pretty much what KeepSpace is all about.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's been cool to be part of the journey with you, to see you grow from a 2-person team into a 16-person team and bring all these systems online and, you know, have the business up and running and humming like a well-oiled machine.
Hey, lots of kicks, but yeah, we're slowly grooving them out.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to ask you a bit about your business challenges over that time. So what have been the biggest business challenges that you've faced in the 6 years that you've been running KeepSpace?
Biggest business challenges that we've faced has been working with the team culture and dynamics more than all the rest. More than finances, more than the solution to a problem, more than the products. It's been being able to work with a team dynamic. Because we're in a service-based industry initially, the service-based industry needs to have people that have an alignment with what you're trying to do. And that has been probably the hardest thing to try and address. The reason why it's been the hardest is because you're trying to work with people's livelihoods, you're trying to work with what they're passionate about, you're trying to work with their skill set and having their skill set connect with what you're trying to do long term. Because I found that if you don't care about those things, if you don't care about their livelihood, what they care about, then turnover of people increases. And turnover is, as everyone would know in business, quite an expensive process. Having to rehire, having to retrain, that is a very painful thing to go through. And so working through that, through the processes we tried to work in a service-based industry regards to payroll and financing people's livelihoods, that was very gritty at the beginning because we did not have sufficient cash flow to pay market rates. So we utilized share structures as the instrument to be able to offset the differences of what they were paid. And therefore we had to enter into shareholders agreements vesting agreements, and then having those as clear as possible and transparent as possible, which then sets the standard of what the business outlook looks like, and turning people not just into employees, which I really don't like that word, but turning people into technically shareholders of the company. And then when you mix shareholders with employees or teammates, then you change the dynamic of what the relationship is. It's not a closed book scenario where you can just say, you come, do your job, and here you are paid. It's more like you come, you're aware of our finances, so then we have to open up open book policy structures to allow them to have trust that their shares that they were being issued instead of cash will return to them in a longer period of time.
Yep.
And so that has been probably the biggest challenge for us over everything else.
Okay, so yeah, team dynamics, culture, getting your employees, even though you don't like that word, on board with what you're trying to achieve as a business. Yeah, okay, I can see how that can be challenging. You mentioned cash flow and finances just briefly there. So I want to focus on the financial element of Keep Space. What's been the biggest challenge? I mean, you're running a $1.7 million business now, so you've got expenses that need to be paid. You've got lots of shipping expenses running a 3PL business. You've got payroll to meet. You've got debts that you need to balance and repay over time. So there's a lot of cash flow management and that kind of thing going on. What's the biggest challenge from a financial perspective in running this business?
Okay, so if it's a little difficult because a standard 3PL business is mostly honed in just providing a storage location, a off-the-shelf software solution, and a team to be able to process the orders as efficiently as possible with the best rate structures. And the fight usually goes volume to rates. So you'll just say, we're producing this much volume, we expect this much rate, Mr. Carrier. You build those relationships, and that's mostly, in a holistic view, 3PL. Because we thought, if we just go in that direction, we're kind of going to get smashed. So we had to implement other improvements in the industry standard to lift that arrangement up. So we thought we needed to open up a dynamic that opens. I'll come back to your question. I'm just diverting slightly. We needed to open up an opportunity to have a software solution that would be able to wow the people that work with us, and then the people that use the service, as well as become the forefront of bridging the miscommunication gap between software developers who build SaaS products and logistic warehouses who are not the most technological savvy individuals in the industry. So bringing those two things together combines additional financial stress on this particular business we run. If we didn't do it, we'd probably make very healthy profits because we're not having to really build another thing. We could run off the solution pack, run a good price, happy days. That kind of becomes a business structure. But because we figured, okay, we want to duplicate ourselves, we want to create a SaaS product that if people weren't using our services, they could use the SaaS solution. That requires further payments into a development team in-house, because if you do this if we outsource this, fuck me, it'd be like $500,000 a year. It's just, those contractors are crazy. So bringing in internal developers and using Keep Space as the guinea pig of the system, that extra pressure of paying for those developers and off-site developers becomes a reduction in the profits that can be made in this company, as well as it removes the cash flow with other operational opportunities that could be put forward. So that's where probably the financial pressures are or challenges are compared to the other industry players, because we're focusing on something that hasn't been built yet and still hasn't been built yet. It's still got another probably 3 years of development to complete to a standard that I would say is like, okay, we've reached our fourth plateau. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So, yeah, you mentioned software there. So software is an important piece of the business because it's differentiating how KeepSpace operates from how a traditional 3PL model operates. The software is very important to you, the customized element of the software, helping clients with their journeys, making it easy for them to run online stores and then integrate the picking and packing and shipping piece. So given that that's part of your business strategy, what have I know your R&D claims over the past 6 years have incorporated that software. So what have your R&D projects internally been focused on?
Okay, I'll try to remember. The R&D projects that I know that I could do this year is because I could go that far back. The years before, okay, I'll try and go the years before. I know it's all documented.
I'm challenging you.
Yeah, you are. I think the previous years, we were focusing on, okay, so we had an original version. It was the first version of our platform. And then that first version had a front version view. That front version view was quite challenging to work through. And so we had to update the front version to provide new services that would come through, which we didn't know because the industry doesn't have a really clean way of doing this. They kind of, it works like this in my industry. A 3PL will say to a outsourced contracting company, look, we need a new software program. And then they'll be like, cool, we'll take the contract. And then they'll then take that contract with the 3PL. Then the 3PL will do their best to explain their problems. And then the software contractors will build something to match those problems. Yep. They then charge a quoted amount, $250,000 or something stupid like that. And then they will build it. And then after they build it, they go through iterations of those requests. Then they'll reach a point where somewhere in that contract, they'll say, look, 3PL business, I know you want the world, you want all these things. We haven't agreed to that. We're going to lock it down with these things. Then they finalize at a point, and then that becomes the product, and it becomes theirs. And then, as you would know, then they will renegotiate extensions, improvements, updates, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they'll get to a point where like, fuck it, it's good enough as it is, and that's where it ends. So for our side, we worked on the arrangement that we didn't want to go down that road. We thought, let's build it in-house. We built the first version, recognized challenges within it, tested those challenges, recognized some of them were really, really bad decisions, refixed them, and then brought forth a new front view to our old back-end view. That was all connected to a singular database that was holding both the front and back-end views to show in the singular database. We recognized that was not the best process, so we've had to separate those into separate APIs of each of the platforms, of the views, sorry. And so now we've transitioned away our front view to a new API separated component, which then enabled us to do faster interchanges. But now we're currently been working on changing the back-end view, which we would call the administration view. And that administration view has had so many functionalities added to it that it's quite a complex little black box. So we're, for the last 18 months, we've been addressing the technical debt of the work for the previous 3 years that we had built up to rewrite a lot of it and separate it as its own API so it becomes easier to update and improve than the current version that we're sitting on. And in all honesty, the version we were working on was Ruby with the React.js front end. Yep. And so that was then an opening for us to recognize we can add other applications, like a picking app application, a packing station application, to be applied only because we were addressing that initial variation. If we had stuck with the first variation of a database connected to the back and front end view, then it would have been bad. It would have worked, but it would have been bad, and we wouldn't have seen progress in what we've been doing. So that investment that we've taken from the profits of the service have just pretty much just been pummeled back into this. So that's the technical challenges.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you for that. No, that's great. So I'm going to ask you another tough question now, because I know you're not afraid of tough questions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you've spoken about your software development journey over the 6 years, and it's evolved from a fairly simple front and back end with a database into now multiple applications, admin panel, picking app, packing app, all of that. We know as a R&D tax incentive claimant, there are certain requirements that the tax office has that you need to meet to be able to claim R&D. So if there are any businesses out there that are watching this and they're developing software as well, I just want to get an understanding from you. So the three key criteria we have to be eligible as an R&D project is we need to have an experiment, we need to generate new knowledge, and there needs to be some form of technical risk in the project.
Correct.
So with the software you've been developing, how do you see it addressing those three key pieces?
All right, so I guess because it's fresh of mind last financial year, I'll probably address that one and see how that looks. So the experiment, we've recognized that, very first of all, we needed something to be able to better record our processes. Record your processes. Very important.
Do that, people. Document everything.
And what we recognized is we thought, okay, let's go through a recording process that not only does the R&D, because frankly, businesses are like, I'm not going to fucking record something for once a year. I need to do something that connects to the holistic view of where the business is going. Yep. So no sponsored applied to this, but weekdone.com is the platform we chose to utilize, which encapsulated the sequences for OKRs. And OKRs is objective key results. So we utilize this to be a part of the R&D process to apply our experiments as well as our company goals and our KPI targets that we wanted to achieve for the the financial year. And inside that, it enabled us to say, okay, we want to achieve within the development team an application that helps us pick, a packing station that helps us pack, and having those applications to be prepared as fundamental blocks towards a SaaS product that we want to build. We can't build the SaaS products comfortably. I mean, we could do an MVP and go real super sketchy startup style, not sketchy style, go real startup style and just like, throw it together real quick, see if people like it, rebuild. But we did that in the first 3 years. That sucks, really sucks. So we thought, let's make a plan where we can implement the parts we need in this SaaS product, use it for ourselves, but build it in a way where it will be released to the public. We don't know if it will be successful because frankly, SaaS products for the 3PL industry don't have a lot of... There's a lot of guys that have made these things. Not a lot of them have been very successful. And I know that because based on the subscription lineups of people who had signed up for these things, they're half made, they're half developed. They're made as a solution to one particular problem, but it's not a part of the whole problem. So we thought, well, if we want to do this right, let's do all these multiple problems, combine it within this roadmap, and achieve these experiments along the way. Yep. Now, they're not really experiments, they're just objectives to make. But we knew we had to write it in a way and prepare it in a way to document it that it would be considered a scientific approach. So we would state, all right, we're going to try a picking application. Has there been one out in the industry before? Yep. Do the research, see what else is there. Yep. Is there something that combines a picking application to an existing third-party logistics system that's available to utilize and trial without payments? Of course, no. You got to pay for it all. And the expected cost for payment was around $3,000 to $4,000 just to open the door. So we said, fuck that, we're not doing that. That's not going to happen. We would rather build it ourselves if we have to pay that kind of money. So that's what we did. So then recognizing what would become the new knowledge of just saying the picking application, what are the things we need to gather to know how it works, to make it work? So we watched YouTube videos, we went to different warehouses to see how they operate. We looked at different applications that were being utilized within those warehouses, what functionalities they chose to use to be the most efficient route structures. We looked at Amazon warehouses, we looked at different providers within Perth that I won't name because they probably won't, I didn't ask for permission for their public announcement. But we just looked at a lot of places, right? And then we just wanted to see, okay, what is the elements that make sense that could work for us for a public forum, like for every warehouse? What can become the new universal rules, so to speak? Yep. Because there wasn't any. There's every warehouse does it a different way. Like one warehouse will state the row columns within the warehouse starts with a letter, and then runs down the row in a numeric form, and then another letter coming up to based on height. Then you go into IKEA, it's all based on a number at the front of the row, then it runs on a 3-number axis position where you'll run down the row with a number and then you'll come up with a number on the height. So then, like, which way do we go? We personally chose a number format based on that. It would probably be easier. There's another one where there was another warehouse that stated they would do a coloring code correction where the row would state red, which means you don't go down, and another one would state green, which means it's a one-way run. So that way traffic could only go one direction. So therefore, if you needed something and it was in an opposite traffic direction to grab something, do you have to go all the way around to the top and then come back down again? So there's many ways people set up their warehouse layouts. And we figured if we're going to build a picking application for a warehouse layout, what is going to be the most effective way to do so? So we thought to do a listing. I'll just say one of the examples. We thought, okay, if the application is going to be trying to go to each location within the warehouse as functionable as possible, why don't we try starting like within row 1, like the furthest end of the warehouse, run down the line, and then back up the other line, down the line, up the line. And every location we pass that was considered a human reachable, achievable reach for it, because we have racking that goes up 4 meters in the air. So we figured we can't get people to go and grab something 4 meters in the air because that means they need special equipment. So we have to have it close to the ground. So we geolocate all the numbers of the zones of spaces that they would pass on the rows, and then made that a long list, and then tried that list to see what is the best list layout to put that forward. Now this, as I tell you, still hasn't been completed in development, but it's like 90% on the way there. In that list, it's then stating that if people produced orders and had stuff within the warehouse, if it has in multiple places, then just going through that list as they go through and grabbing the orders where it's placed. Instead of it being a zigzag saying, I need to go to row 1, then I go to row 5, then I go back to row 1, and then go row 6, and then go to row 2, which I passed 3 times already, to row 1, and then I go back to 8, which I've already just passed, going past the other 2. So then it would be better to say, I go into row 1, pick everything I need, then in row 2, pick the things I needed, then 6 and 7, then 8, and then I'm done, which makes it a bit more efficient. So then you're combining multiple orders together. And this is not something I made, this was something we found out. So that's the new knowledge. And then I think last one's technical risk.
Yeah.
And then the risk is like, well, after we do it all, is it the best choice? Yeah. Was it the best solution? Probably not. There's probably better ways to do it. But based on height, based on risk of people getting hurt in a high elevated stock above their heads, based on how width, or based on where they choose to put things in. So we don't know all the risks, and they're usually unforeseen until the solution starts to be tested.
Totally. Yep.
That's my answer.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was great. So, and also, I mean, you set targets for yourself, right? Certain number of minutes per pick, and can we make the picking process as efficient as possible, and then have targets in our hypotheses and test those hypotheses to see whether it's true or not.
Those are like summary metrics.
Yeah.
But to be able to achieve the summary metrics, you got to go in the weeds.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. So yeah, thanks for laying out the structural approach to your R&D. Like documentation is very important. Having clear objectives and experiments that you go through in each section is very important. And if you do that well, then hopefully the process to pull it all together is relatively easy because it already exists. So I wanted to ask you about the results of actually claiming R&D for 6 years. So how has it affected the business going through 6 R&D tax incentive claims? What has been the outcome for you guys as a business?
So I think when we first started this, we were like, okay, in all openness, we never were able to be successful in raising outsourced revenue. We were never able to get the attention of investors to invest in the business of KeepSpace. The only ones who ever did were friends and family members and teammates within the company. Yep. So because we were not in a position where we had a surplus of cash, it gave us the benefit to recognize that we needed to be smarter, be more resourceful, and seek out other areas where we need to capitalize on the revenue itself to be sustainable all the time. So we had no ability to have a genuine burn rate.
Yep.
So because of that, it made the R&D process very attractive to us, knowing that it would be small boosts of incomes annually. Yep. The approach of it was never to be something that's like, wow, we got a lot of coin for all the money we spend. Because frankly, that's stupid. It's not smart to just burn cash to hope to get a big R&D tax. Totally. It's meant to be, you have chosen to do genuine experiments, and what I would believe, the government wants us to be remunerated fairly for the efforts made for those returns back from our leaders in Canberra.
Absolutely.
So in saying that, the actual returns they're like it'd be like, I don't know, 2 weeks of revenue or something like that, where it would produce back into the business, which when you think about it can be a breather for some of the OPEX costs that you have, or something where if you wanted to offset something for the new financial. I know I have a lot of friends that will use the finances to buy into the next financial year's challenges. Yeah. But we've usually chosen not to go that route, because then it's just an echo effect of the process, and eventually it will just circle off itself. Yeah. So it does need to always be that you will always spend more than what you'll be returned. So it's never been generated, from what I can see, as a purpose of a free ride or free ticket, a free ticket meal. It's actually just to reward it. Now, the effects that it has given to our business is that it gives us a larger amount of confidence to try more genuine experiments, and it gives us the ability to recognize, okay, if we genuinely fuck this right up, it's not completely that bad. I mean, yeah, we'll lose a lot of money, but at least we know that there is a potential for this to come back in a small portion. Now, when I say small, our R&D claim, which I'm happy to share, is, okay, we spent, I believe it was $238,000 for the financial year of 2021 on a 1.7 mil turnover. So 231,000 was genuine expenses that we had spent through staff members and equipment that we had purchased to trial these experiments. Yep. And through that, you know, we're expected to be in the ballpark of about 70K return on that. Now, we made a personal loss of 116, which Maitreya, I'm sure we'll talk about the numbers, but for us, again, if we spend 230 and get 70K back, it's not like a huge return back. It's just to be a recognition of, look, good effort, good try, keep going, make Australia better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you say that facetiously, make Australia better, but man, I've watched you turn a 2-person business into a 16-person business, and the Australian government does want to incentivise this kind of experimentation in business, because the more businesses we have that are taking risks and are trying to develop the next wave of industry in their particular niche, so if you're doing it in 3PL, the better our economy can be, the more jobs we can create, the more stable we'll be, the more we can export, all of that kind of stuff.
I agree.
Yeah, so it does definitely come back to the Australian economy at the end of the day. And it's worthwhile investing in companies like Keep Space because of that. Cool. Totally. So now I want to tie it up together a little bit. You talked at the start about some of the challenges you face in terms of team culture, but then financially managing your cash flow. How has the R&D tax incentive process helped you to face some of those business challenges in a financial context?
How has it... Say that one more time?
Yeah, so the financial issues, the financial challenges of managing cash flow, managing payroll, managing OPEX and shipping costs that you pay out, how has the R&D tax incentive and the refunds you've been getting for 6 years from the R&D tax incentive, how has that helped with the business challenges in terms of the finances?
If I am to be completely honest with you, it hasn't. It's not, again, it's like it's a week or two of revenue. It's not like, I mean, it's a breath of fresh air for a week or two, and then back to the grind. It's like, that's literally what it is. It's like, thank you very much, very happily to do it, and then back to work. That's the honest truth.
Sure. So it's not going to save a failing company. It's not going to prop you up for years and years if you're making bad business choices. That's right. But it does help.
Oh, I know where you're going now. Yeah, like honestly, like if I agree with what you're saying, Maitreya. If you're saying in the approach that is it something that's really made a long-term impact, the answer is truly no. It really is not a long-term impact. It is a blip on the journey, but it is a helpful blip that helps be able to just give a slight refresher to some of those overhead costs that we've had monthly invoices. If we fell back a little bit in our financial modeling, then it does help push that back in its right position, or recourse our GST offsets that we've had to, not offsets, our GST requirements. It may cover us for a quarter, so we don't have to pay a quarter. That's really nice, but that's as far as it goes. You still got to run a healthy, well-maintained business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if there are any companies out there watching this and they may be in the R&D space, they're not sure, but they're spending some money on some projects each year, and they're thinking, well, do I claim R&D or do I not bother? Is it worthwhile doing it? What's the administrative burden on me? All these kind of questions, right, that businesses might have. What would you say about them?
My true reflection over the last 6 years of doing this is that if your attitude is to truly create value for the people that you're trying to serve and help, and you want to try something a little bit innovative in the approach, and it will cost money for you to do that process, then I would encourage you to do this sequence. If you are looking to do so, I would encourage the conversation to be started with someone like Maitreya before the application at the end of the financial year. Do it so that you recognize the documentation that will be put forth. And when I say that, it sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's just being able to record, have a good long-term memory of what you're recording, and then sharing those documents. If you're already in a business model where you're recording your team goals and you're recording some weekly processes of what those goals are being done, and you kind of half documenting anyway. So it's more or less just knowing that, all right, we've set our goals and we know we want to hit, say, we want to build a new app, or we want to try a new product design, or we want to produce a new service system that we think that'll be really helpful and that we can't find in the marketplace, then those things like, all right, cool, I'm about to kick this off. I've heard about this R&D thing. Maybe I just give Maitreya a buzz and just say, okay, look, I'm looking to do this. This is where I'm going. And then that way you're able to set up the best financial return on that as you move forward into that new project. Because when you get really excited about a new project, you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to go down and go. And usually you do. And that's probably the way I would not, and that's the way I did. Maitreya had to like pull me out, like, hey, this is possible. You can do this. So it does seem a little scary. It does, but it does improve your attitude towards the long-term longevity, the long-term longevity of where that will take the business. So I think it's really worthwhile doing it. And even though it's done for the purpose of return on expense, it's not done for the purpose to make profit on the experiment. So the experiment itself will become the new supporting structure within your business, and the refund for the effort to make that becomes helpful to continue improving that. So yeah, it's totally worth doing it, but I would encourage just some basic steps of how to do it. Conversation with Maitreya, which costs nothing to do. You just give him a buzz or set up a meeting. He set us up, and then once we were set up, we set up for 12 months. Then we connect after 12 months when the financial year had finished, and we had our P&L pretty much finished with our accountant. Maitreya just took those documents and the lodged paperwork together, and voila, that's another year done.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome. No, that's great. Good to hear. Thank you. What has your experience been of claiming R&D with me for 6 years?
I like you, Matt. I think you're a good guy. I don't think you bullshit. I think you're honest. You have a heart for people just like I do. You think long term just like I do. So if you're personally someone yourself that thinks long term, cares about people, cares about the heart of where an ethical business should go, Maitreya has been in sync with me that whole process. So I would say I would connect with you in these ways, and I think very highly of you.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot. Awesome. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for your time in having a chat about Keep Space and having a chat about R&D, and appreciate it. All the best with your journey.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
Bye.